story. And I feel like every story will help and every story will heal. Finally getting back to me, my art. All I want to do is art. And the other thing is that I love stories. So like to me, art is in everything. Your art is your voice, your speaking, your connection. You can feel everyone's energy. That's your art. It's the art of living to me. So Artandhustle to me is the art of living and art of it and everything.
I hope that you've cut that piece right there and make it your intro and your outro, because that was dope.
How are you? It's so good to see you.
See you. Good morning on this Wednesday, cold winter.
Hello. It is brick out there.
It's cold. It is cold. So welcome to the Artandhustle Gallery of Conversations. I'm excited for you to be here today, Tam. And let's tell all the people we just met on Sunday at this beautiful Oprah-inspired Sunrises brunch.
God. It was just so amazing. I felt there were new faces, but souls knew each other.
Yes.
From before is
Yes.
how it wasn't new.
Mm-hmm.
And overall, it was just so refreshing.
Yes.
To be in a place of greatness.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what exuded from everybody that I spoke with, even those who I didn't have the opportunity to speak with.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like authentic and something to, really have you reflect.
Yeah.
So I was so blessed to have been there, to have been invited by Sunrise and to make the connections that were made, namely you, which was amazing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And since then, I've just kind of been floating and thinking about ideas and what's next, and just trying to be more clear with the direction I'm going
in my garage, and so my garage is my podcast, and it's like cold in here.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm like, oh my God. So I had the heater next to me, but then I'm like, oh my God, it's blowing in my ear. So I was like, I need to like turn it off. But yeah, let's tell the people. So I'm super excited to have you here. You saw the podcast that I just did with Sunrise, which we had spoken on Sunday, where that was a huge moment for me, because for me to be able to come on a year later, so now I'm hitting my 100th podcast that I'm going to air out. So 100 podcasts, and that was honestly like a full circle moment for me, because for me to come on, tell my story and not burst into tears like I tell people, it's a huge feat, because as we know, like, it's really, really difficult to talk about the past without, like, I'm starting to well up here, to just not burst out in tears,
Yeah, totally. I saw the podcast on Friday, and I like to watch all of Sunrise's podcasts. I always get a nugget from it where it just leads me into reflection mode,
Yeah.
And I shared with Sunrise, I said, I've watched all of your podcasts and they've all been awesome, but this one, it really hit home for me.
Yeah.
And because we share similar experiences. As a child, I was also sexually molested by a family member, my husband. And, it's funny to hear you say that it's difficult for you to speak about it without bursting into tears. And for me, it was more of I have to be matter of fact.
Yeah.
So for the few that I did share it with, don't get me wrong, there would be moments where, it would be that emotional. But I think even telling the story, it just became, if I tell it, let me just tell it and not allow it to affect me anymore. So there was still
Mm,
a shutdown that was happening within me,
yeah, yeah,
even when I shared the story.
yeah. I
You
think
can understand.
when I reconnected with Sunrise, I had a flashback where I did remember that I had told her, and I asked her, like, was she, like, how was I as a child? And I think she told me, like, when I would talk about it, I think I was very matter of fact of like, okay, this is what happened. And I was telling her, like, you disconnect from your body, your mind and your body disconnect, so that's why those emotions don't fully come out. And I had mentioned that for the past 2 years, all I've been doing is crying. All I've been doing is crying during this like COVID reset thing. And I feel like I had to feel and be depressed and heartbroken and mourn and grieve that childhood that I lost.
Yeah. It's so funny. I have this best friend and like she knows all, and vice versa.
Mhm.
And when I would speak with her about it and I'm speaking to her about it, it's just like I would be taken aback because she would burst out in tears.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
seeing her emotions would then trigger my
Mm,
emotions. It was kind of like a mirror effect where I was reminded, oh, this is the part where you're supposed to be emotional,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
And so, again, as you stated, that disconnect is so fierce,
Yes,
you
hugely,
know?
because it's a fight or flight survival mode, because that's what we had to do. We had to create that mask and that armor for us to survive in this kind of world where that stuff happened, and you have to like put it away, bury it, and not think about it. And then until we face with people who touch us in our soul a certain way
Yeah,
and
yeah,
connect with us, that's when we're like, oh my God, like, yes, I have a moment to feel safe
yeah,
to feel it.
yeah. And, safety, like that's how I was wired. I had to make sure that in every situation, in every conversation, in every room that I walked in, every relationship that I had, that I controlled my safety.
Mm-hmm.
It was my
Control. Yeah.
responsibility,
Yeah.
right? And so, what does that?
What this process has really, really helped me. So I was telling you, like, listen, it's podcast therapy for me. So I am all for like chatting on these podcasts and going through these things with you, because
Yeah,
after 100 podcasts, it's literally opened my eyes to really me. Like, it's given me confidence. It's given me a different perspective of liking myself and seeing myself differently, because I have to like look at myself every single time I have to edit it. I have to hear myself talk. And like, I'm a super introverted person. So someone who's gone through like the sexual abuse and trauma and mental like manipulation and gaslighting and narcissism, like he was the gamut ray of it. He was an alcoholic. He was probably like psychopathic, like all of it. So going through that as a child, like you're just so messed up in the head. So all of this podcast therapy and then seeing myself like an out of body experience, seeing myself on TV has been so therapeutic, because you're looking at yourself in a different point of view, because you never really, you're living on fight or flight constantly. So you're not even like listening to yourself, you're not seeing yourself, you're not hearing yourself, you're just doing all the motions of life. So for you to stop and look at yourself on TV and listen to the words you're saying, eventually you get to a point where you're like, wow, that was a good point. Oh, I like what I just said. Or you start laughing the same time that the video is going off, and you're like,
right.
oh. So after like, I mean, the first few that you see on TV, you're like, oh, I don't really like it. Oh, I need to fix my lighting. Oh, I need to do this. But after a while, you get into a rhythm of it, and you get into the consistency of it, where I actually come on the podcast and I don't even have my questions. I
Mhm.
just love the flow of
Yeah,
these conversations, that I don't have to be so worried about, oh my God, I need to do the intro. I need to make sure I do this. I need to make sure I do that. Now it's all about the flow for me. So if I'm having a good conversation with someone, I'm perfectly okay with it, because there's a purpose to these conversations, and there will always be nuggets and tips and tricks that we can give out, because every story will help and every story will heal. So I'm all about giving out, helping people one story at a time. And doing these consistently will really help, because you'll just love the process. You'll love hearing your voice. You'll love the conversations. And also, like Sunrise said, like every time you talk about it, you're giving it less power. So after 100 podcasts, I've given it finally less power. But it doesn't mean like when I watched a podcast I did with Sunrise, I bursted into tears. I totally did. But it doesn't have the same effect as it did before, because you just keep talking about it, and then you'll find like different revelations about it, different like, avenues to think. And also I realized like every time something triggers you, it's a lesson. It's giving you an aha moment and a light to be like, if this triggers you, that's something you need to go into it deeper. What was it connected to as a child that made you feel that way? Because everything comes from childhood.
Absolutely.
Everything is everyone and every event. If you're upset by it, it's a reflection of something that happened to you as a child. Absolutely. So how did you feel about it? What was it? Is it really that thing that got you upset? Or was it, when somebody hurt you and hurt your feelings, and someone, attacked you and made you not feel safe?
That's right.
You know what I mean?
To introduce themselves. So, Linda, tell the good people who you are.
I am LindaLCheung. I am kind of a jack of all trades. I do a little bit of fashion design, graphic design. I'm a multimedia artist. I'm a single mom of 2 kids, divorced, and I'm, the founder and owner of Artandhustle. And I've curated some art shows. Now I've gone into the podcasting world, where I want to talk about the art of living. And I feel like every story will help and every story will heal. And that's how me and Sunrise got connected, where I saw you on Facebook and I was like, I love your energy. And, if you'll be so kind to join me on my podcast. And this is how it's all evolved now. Now we do our weekly inspiring conversations. So I'm so happy to be here with you today.
I know, we're like cross-pollinating. Yay!
Yep. I mean, I love it because you have written your book and I was doing the podcast. And so since we connected, I was like, Sunrise, you got to do your podcast. I'm like, just do it. Just jump in. Right?
Yes. So for those who don't know, yes, I had this idea and it was stewing, and I may have recorded one thing during the pandemic. And then when I connected with Linda was like, just do it. Those are her exact words. She was like, just do it. She said, stop thinking about it. Stop overthinking it. She said, just press record and just do it. And so that first episode that everyone loves with Tenora from season 1, that would have never happened had it not been for my girl, Linda. So I'm so glad that she is on my side of the podcast to share her journey, mainly because everyone knows I do this show because I want people to feel comfortable in their relationship with a higher power. For me, I call it God. Whoever and whomever you are, I want people to feel connected to something bigger. And so I love having these conversations with people with different journeys. So I'll start with my first question, which I love to ask my guests, Linda. When you hear the word divinity or divine, what comes to mind for you?
I want to feel like it's hope and it's purpose and it's spirituality. So I've always said, like, I never really wanted to call it just one name, because I feel like all religion should be all encompassing. So whatever you want to call it, whatever someone believes in, Buddhism or whatever, I feel like we're all trying to obtain the same thing, where we're all feeling, where we want to be in touch with something, a spirituality, a divine, your gut instinct, so your intuition, whatever it is. I feel like that's what divinity is. It's all of us. It's all encompassing. So I feel like it's a little bit of everything. And it's also like our purpose and of our authenticity. So if we can all be more authentic with our purpose and our intentions, and to be in a space of who we are, mind, body, and soul, if we can be connected, then we'll be able to be more authentic, sit here with you, and to be who we are. So then there's less conflict around in the world,
When were you, so I know your childhood.
Yeah.
I know, you know, a lot of your upbringing. Do you ever recall at an early age being connected to something higher than yourself? And if so, what was it?
I feel like when I was younger, I always had this like innate hope. I always knew that there was something better for me. So with my upbringing, like it was very traumatic. I grew up in a very abusive, mentally, physically, sexually abusive home where there was like, it's very militant. It was like a prison. And it happened, it was like majority of my childhood from age 5 to like sophomore in high school, like that constant abuse was always there. So, but I always knew that there was hope. So I just grasped onto that. So I just knew that there was something out there that was better for me. And there was definitely a different purpose for me, because I'm so thankful still to this day where technically my dad tried to kill me at age like 5 years old, you know? So there's a purpose for me to be here. And I feel like my purpose is now more to talk on these podcasts and to tell my story. So someone else who's listening to it and who knew me in high school would never have known that, you know, oh my God, Linda went through such a traumatic childhood with all that abuse. And she came to school and just put a mask on and put this avatar on. Nobody would know that I was going through all of that stuff. So I want to be able to tell my story so other people would hear it and be like, well, if she can go through all of that, then I can go through whatever struggles I'm going through as well.
You know, just, you know, I always get chills when I hear something. I'm sure my listeners and viewers are like, their mouths are wide open, like, what did she say? Like, how, oh my God, how, I know how, but like, what was the journey for you from 5 to now where you are to be able to open your mouth?
Yeah.
Oh my God. And talk the way that you're talking now.
Well,
Round out, let's let everybody know about our inspirational journal. So excited. It's a great holiday gift. So make sure you go grab one. The link will be at the bottom of the screen. And, you know, don't just get one for yourself, get one for a loved one, and start 2023 like making big dreams, big goals, or even heal, because we like to call them our healing and inspirational journals.
Yes.
So
like finally getting back to me, you know, my art. All I want to do is art. And the other thing is that I love stories. So like to me, art isn't everything. Your art is your voice, your speaking, your connection, you know, you can feel everyone's energy. That's your art. It's the art of living to me. So Artandhustle to me is the art of living and art of it and everything.
I hope that you've cut that piece right there